The explosion that blew open the 27th floor door shook the entire hallway. Red emergency lights flashed in frantic rhythm as alarms shrieked through the air, and the SWAT team flooded in like a storm, weapons aimed directly at Callista Warren. The CEO clutched her daughter Matilda tight against her chest, backing against the wall, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might stop. Carter Hale, the night shift security guard and single father, stepped forward in one smooth motion, spreading his arms to shield the mother and child. He said only 4 words. The commander moved closer, examined him carefully, then stood at attention and saluted him like saluting a general. That salute would shatter everything Callista thought she knew. But to understand how they arrived at that moment, you have to go back 6 hours earlier, when Carter Hale was just another invisible man doing a job nobody noticed. Carter Hale was 36 years old, a single father who lived quietly in a modest apartment on the edge of the city. He worked as a maintenance technician and night security guard at Warren Tech headquarters, the gleaming steel tower that housed one of the most advanced cybersecurity firms in the country. Nobody paid much attention to him. He arrived 10 minutes early for every shift, carried a worn notebook where he logged every minor irregularity, checked fire exits, monitored camera feeds, and disappeared into the background like furniture. His daughter Audrey was 7 years old, sharp as a tack, with eyes that missed nothing. She had her father's habit of watching people carefully before speaking. Carter raised her alone. There was no mother in the picture anymore, a fact he never discussed, and Audrey had learned not to ask. On school nights, he dropped her at his neighbor's apartment before heading to his overnight shift. On weekends, they went to the park, played quiet games, and lived a life that required no explanation. To anyone watching, Carter seemed pleasant but unremarkable. He never raised his voice, never complained, never caused trouble. But his eyes told a different story. They moved constantly, scanning corners, tracking exits, measuring distances. When he walked through a room, he automatically noted the positions of doors, windows, potential cover. It was second nature, the kind of training that never leaves you even when you've left that life behind. Callista Warren was 34, brilliant, ruthless, and in complete control of her domain. She had built Warren Tech from a startup into a powerhouse, and she trusted exactly 2 things: her own intelligence and the state-of-the-art security system she had personally overseen. She was a widow, though few people knew that detail. Her late husband had been a Navy pilot who died in a training accident when their daughter Matilda was just 2 years old. Callista had channeled her grief into ambition, pouring everything into the company and her daughter. She had little patience for people she considered beneath her intellect, and night shift workers fell squarely into that category. They followed procedures. They punched clocks. They were necessary but unremarkable parts of the machine. Tonight, Callista had brought 6-year-old Matilda to the office. It was late, nearly 9 in the evening, but the board meeting could not be postponed. Warren Tech was launching a revolutionary security platform in 72 hours, and they were finalizing a contract worth $300 million. Callista told herself she brought Matilda because the nanny had called in sick. The truth was darker and simpler. She did not trust anyone with her daughter. The meeting was set for the 27th floor executive conference room. In attendance would be Corbin Shaw, the chief financial officer, a polished man in his mid-40s with silver at his temples and an easy smile. Ingrid Doyle, Callista's executive assistant, would be taking notes. Finn Mercer, head of legal and external affairs, would be presenting the final contract terms. Everything was planned down to the minute. Carter noticed the irregularities around 7:30 that evening. The fire exit on the 27th floor had a different lock core than it should. There had been no maintenance order. He made a note in his book. Then he checked the security camera feeds and saw something that made his jaw tighten. The hallway camera on 27 had a 3-second delay in the timestamp. Most people would never notice. Carter noticed everything. At 8:15, a delivery worker appeared in the loading bay. His name tag read Zane Turner, and his access card indicated he was part of the tech services team, but Carter knew every face on the tech team. This man was not one of them. Turner's hands were rough, his posture too alert, and he carried a toolbox that looked heavier than it should. Carter approached Ingrid Doyle as she was setting up the conference room. He spoke quietly, respectfully. "Miss Doyle, I need to report some irregularities. The fire exit lock has been changed without authorization, and there's a timestamp issue with the security feed." Ingrid barely looked up from her tablet. "I'll pass it along to Mrs. Warren." 5 minutes later, Callista's response came back through Ingrid. "The system is functioning perfectly. Tell him to stop wasting our time." Carter did not argue. He never argued. He simply returned to his station, pulled up the building's technical schematics on his personal laptop, and began mapping contingency routes. If something went wrong, if the elevators failed, if the main exits were compromised, he needed to know every alternative path out of the building. He had learned long ago that hope was not a strategy. Preparation was. What Carter did not know, what Callista could not have known, was that Corbin Shaw had been systematically siphoning company assets for the past 11 months. It had started small, subtle transfers masked as operational expenses. But as Warren Tech's valuation skyrocketed, Corbin's greed had grown proportionally. He had entered into an arrangement with a shell corporation, one that would allow him to funnel nearly $100 million offshore if he could get Callista to sign a restructuring document tonight. The document was brilliant in its deception. Buried in 43 pages of corporate language was a clause that transferred controlling interest of Warren Tech's proprietary algorithms to a third party. Once signed, Callista would lose operational control of her own company, and Corbin would vanish with enough money to disappear forever. But Callista was too smart, too careful. She would never sign something without reading every word. Corbin needed leverage, the kind that made rational people make irrational choices. He needed fear, so he had hired Zane Turner and a 4-man crew. Their job was simple in concept, complex in execution. Create a security incident that would lock down the 27th floor, isolate Callista from help, give Corbin 10 minutes alone with her and a pen. He had people inside the building. He knew the security rotations, the camera blind spots, the emergency protocols. What he had not counted on was Carter Hale. The meeting began at 9:30. Callista sat at the head of the table, Matilda coloring quietly in the corner with headphones on, watching cartoons on a tablet. Corbin presented the quarterly financials with his usual confidence. Finn Mercer laid out the contract terms. Ingrid took notes. Everything seemed normal. Then the lights flickered. It started as a flutter, barely noticeable. Then the overhead fluorescence dimmed, surged bright, and cut out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in dim red. Callista stood, frowning. "What is going on?" Corbin's face showed exactly the right amount of concern. Probably a circuit issue. The backup generators should stabilize it. But the backup generators did not stabilize it. The power continued to fluctuate, and then the fire doors began to close. Heavy steel barriers descended from the ceiling, sealing off the main hallway. Callista pulled out her phone. "No signal. We are being jammed," she said quietly. Finn Mercer's face went pale. "Jammed? Who would jam us?" Down in the loading bay, Zane Turner and his crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had cut the main power line and activated a signal jammer powerful enough to blanket 6 floors. The fire exits were secured with new locks only they possessed keys for. They moved through the stairwells like shadows. Heading up. Carter was in the maintenance corridor on 26 when the lights went out. His hand went immediately to his hip, a reflex from another life, reaching for a weapon that was not there. He closed his eyes, counted to 3, forced his breathing steady. Then he moved. He did not run. Running meant panic, and panic meant mistakes. He moved quickly but deliberately toward the stairwell, listening. He heard footsteps below him, too many, too coordinated, not evacuating. Advancing. He smelled it before he saw it. The sharp chemical tang of a breaching charge used to blow locks. These were not confused employees. These were operators. Carter made a decision in half a second. He sprinted up 2 flights of stairs, emerged on 27, and ran toward the executive conference room. The fire doors were down, but he knew the maintenance bypass code. His fingers flew over the keypad, and the door cracked open just wide enough for him to slip through. Callista spun as he entered. "What are you doing here? We need to leave. Now." "Excuse me? Mrs. Warren. There are armed individuals in this building. The communications are jammed. The exits are compromised. We have maybe 2 minutes before they reach this floor." Corbin stood, his face the picture of calm confusion. "That's absurd. Our security would have alerted us." Carter ignored him. He looked directly at Callista. "Your daughter. Is she more important than being right?" Callista's face went white. She looked at Matilda, still coloring, oblivious. "How do you know this?" "Because I know what a tactical breach smells like." He crossed to the window, looked down at the street below. 3 unmarked vans, idling. "They're here for you. We can discuss why later. Right now, we move." Callista wanted to argue. Every instinct told her this night janitor could not possibly know more than her systems. But she looked at his eyes, really looked, and saw something that made her blood run cold. This was not the face of a confused maintenance man. This was the face of someone who had seen combat. She scooped up Matilda. "Where?" "Service corridor. Stay close. Stay quiet." Callista did not trust Carter Hale. She barely knew his name. But she was afraid, and fear made people rational. She nodded. Carter led them to a door marked Authorized Personnel. Only. He had a key. Of course he had a key. He had keys to everything. They moved into a narrow concrete corridor lit by buzzing fluorescent tubes. Matilda was starting to whimper. Callista held her tighter. "Shh, baby. We're okay." "Are we?" Callista hissed at Carter. Not yet. Behind them, the sound of footsteps echoed in the main hallway. Callista's heart hammered. Carter put one finger to his lips, then gestured for them to move. They walked along the service corridor, feet silent on concrete. Callista was furious, terrified and furious. This man, this nobody who checked locks and changed light bulbs, was giving her orders, but he was also keeping them ahead of whoever was hunting them, and that was enough to keep her mouth shut. They reached a junction. Carter stopped, held up a hand. He tilted his head, listening. 30 seconds passed. Then he motioned them forward again. "How do you know where to go?" Callista whispered. "I've walked every inch of this building. Why would a maintenance worker memorize service corridors?" Carter glanced back at her. His eyes were hard. "Do you want your daughter to survive this, Mrs. Warren? Or do you want to debate my qualifications?" Callista's jaw clenched. She had never been spoken to like that, but she swallowed her pride and nodded. They moved deeper into the maze of maintenance spaces. Matilda was crying now, soft, hiccuping sobs. Carter stopped, knelt down in front of her. "Hey, what's your name?" "Matilda. That's a beautiful name. I'm Carter. I have a daughter, too. Her name is Audrey, and she's just a little older than you. You know what Audrey and I do when we're scared?" Matilda shook her head. "We play a game called Silent Steps. You breathe in for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, and you try to walk so quietly that nobody can hear you. Can you do that?" Matilda nodded, sniffling. Good. Your job is to be the quietest person here. Can you do that for me? Okay. Callista watched this exchange and felt something crack inside her. This was not the interaction of a janitor. This was someone who understood fear, who knew how to manage it. They kept moving. Carter's rules were clear and absolute. Stay against the wall. No talking. Stop at every corner. When he signaled, you stopped. When he moved, you moved. Callista found herself obeying without question, and that realization was almost as terrifying as the situation itself. She had spent years being the smartest person in every room. She trusted her systems, her protocols, her control. And now she was following a night shift worker through the guts of her own building because someone was trying to kill her. Or were they? Who are they? She asked quietly. Carter did not slow his pace. Someone who knows this building well enough to disable your security. That's impossible. Is it? Callista thought of Corbin's calm face, Finn's pale one, Ingrid's efficiency. Someone had let this happen. Someone she trusted. Back in the security office on the ground floor, a guard named Marcus Yates regained consciousness. He had been knocked out cold by someone he never saw coming. His head throbbed, and when he touched his temple, his hand came away bloody. He staggered to the radio, called it in. Central, this is Yates. We have a situation. Possible hostile takeover, 27th floor. The police dispatcher's voice crackled back. Repeat, Warren Tech? Affirmative. Fire exits compromised. Communications jammed. I have visual on armed individuals in the stairwell. Possible hostage situation. The dispatcher went quiet for 3 seconds. Then, SWAT is rolling. ETA 12 minutes. Do not engage. Marcus did not have 12 minutes to give. But he also did not have a weapon, backup, or a death wish. He stayed on the line, feeding information as best he could. 3 miles away, Commander Henry Brooks was suiting up. SWAT deployments were rare, hostage situations rarer still, but the alert had come through with a detail that made his blood run cold. The caller who had tipped them off, the one who had described the tactical setup with eerie precision, had used a phrase Henry had not heard in 6 years. Jammer active, fire exits locked, hostiles ascending. Recommend Beta 3 approach. Beta 3 was not civilian language. It was tactical doctrine from a specific unit, a unit that did not officially exist, a unit Henry had served in years ago. Henry keyed his radio. All teams, this is command. We have possible friendly inside. Approach with extreme caution. Confirm targets before engagement. His team looked at him strangely, but they nodded. They trusted Henry's instincts. Inside the building, Carter's old phone buzzed once. A single word reply. Coming. He pocketed the phone and kept moving. Audrey would be safe with the neighbor. She knew the drill. If Daddy did not come home by morning, Mrs. Chen would call the number taped inside the kitchen drawer. Callista noticed the phone. Who did you call? Someone who can help. Police? Better. They reached a mechanical room deep in the building's core. Carter ushered them inside, locked the door behind them. The room hummed with the sound of HVAC units and water pumps. There was exactly one entrance and no windows. We're trapped, Callista said. We're defensible. Carter corrected. There's a difference. What's your plan? Hide here until they leave? My plan is to keep you and your daughter alive until help arrives. And you think help is coming? I know it is. Outside, Zane Turner was losing patience. They had swept 3 floors and found nothing. The CEO was supposed to be in the conference room. She was gone. Someone had moved her. He keyed his radio. Target is mobile. Repeat. Target is mobile. Someone tipped her off. Corbin Shaw's voice came back, tight with stress. Find her. We're running out of time. Zane split his crew. 2 men to sweep the service corridors, 2 to lock down the stairwells. He would personally check the mechanical spaces. Carter heard them coming. He always heard them coming. He counted 3 sets of footsteps, heavy boots on concrete. He turned to Callista. When I tell you, you take Matilda into that corner behind the water heater. You stay there. You do not come out until I say so. What are you going to do? What I'm trained for. You're a maintenance worker. Carter smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Mrs. Warren, do I look like I fix air conditioners? Before she could answer, the door handle rattled. Someone was testing the lock. Then, silence. Then the door exploded inward. Carter moved. The first man through took a shoulder to the sternum, went down hard. Carter had his weapon before the man hit the ground. The second man raised his gun, and Carter put 2 rounds into the ceiling, blowing out the lights. In the darkness, Carter was the only one who knew the room. He used that advantage. He moved like water, silent and inevitable. The second man went down with a precise strike to the temple. The third tried to run, and Carter let him. He secured the 2 weapons, checked the downed men. Alive, unconscious, no permanent damage. Callista stared from her corner. Matilda's face pressed against her shoulder. Who are you? Carter did not answer. He was listening to the third man running, counting steps, calculating. He would reach his team in 30 seconds. They would regroup. This was not over. We need to move again. You just took down 2 armed men in the dark. 3. But 1 got away. We move now. He led them out through a different route, using the confusion to put distance between them and the hostiles. But they were running out of building. Eventually, they would be cornered. That was when the SWAT team breached the main entrance. The explosion that blew the 27th floor access door was controlled, professional, terrifying. Flashbangs went off like thunder, and smoke filled the corridor. Red laser sights cut through the haze, painting everything in crimson lines. Carter was holding one of the weapons he had taken. He did not raise it, but he had not put it down either. In the chaos and smoke, SWAT saw exactly what they were trained to see. Armed individual, potential hostile, civilian nearby. 6 weapons swung toward Carter Hale. Drop the weapon, hands where we can see them. Callista screamed. Matilda was sobbing. Carter stood perfectly still, assessing the situation in a fraction of a second. The SWAT team was professional, disciplined, and they would shoot him if he made the wrong move. Behind him, somewhere in the smoke, the actual hostiles were still hunting. He made his choice. Carter turned to Callista, positioned his body between her and every gun in the hallway, and said 4 words that would change everything. Stand behind me. Then he slowly, carefully, placed the weapon on the ground. Commander Henry Brooks pushed through his team, eyes scanning the scene. He saw Carter's posture, the deliberate way he moved, the protective stance. He saw the scar on Carter's wrist, barely visible in the red emergency lighting. A burn scar, circular, specific. The kind you got from a flashbang that detonated too close. Henry's breath caught. He stepped closer, ignoring the tactical situation, focusing entirely on the man in front of him. Carter Hale, he said quietly. Carter met his eyes. Henry. Henry Brooks straightened to attention and saluted. His entire team froze, confused and shocked. You did not salute civilians. You especially did not salute armed suspects. But Henry Brooks was not saluting a civilian. Captain Hale, Henry said formally. I thought you were dead, sir. Callista felt the world tilt. Carter did not acknowledge the title. There are hostiles in the building. 4 confirmed. Possibly more. They're working with an inside man. The CEO was their target. The child needs immediate extraction. Henry lowered his salute, but did not lower his respect. Copy that, sir. Teams, secure the floor. I want a full sweep. The captain has tactical command. One of the younger SWAT members spoke up. Commander, this man was armed. This man, Henry said coldly, has more combat experience than this entire team combined. You will follow his instructions. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Carter picked up the weapon, checked it with practiced ease, and handed it to Henry. This came from hostile number 2. Knocked him out in mechanical room 7C. Hostile 3 ran east toward the service stairs. You'll want to lock down the south exit before they grab it. Henry was already on the radio, directing his teams with Carter's intel. Within 90 seconds, they had the building locked tight. Callista could not process what was happening. The man who fixed her air conditioning was giving orders to a SWAT commander, and that commander was obeying without question. "Who are you?" she asked again. Carter finally looked at her. "Someone who used to do this for a living." "Do what?" "Rescue people." Henry returned, his face grim. "Sir, we've secured 2 hostiles on this floor and 1 in the stairwell, but we're missing the primary. Whoever organized this is still loose." Carter's eyes went distant, thinking. Then they sharpened. "Who called the meeting tonight?" Callista blinked. "What? Who set up the board meeting? Who knew you would be here with your daughter at this specific time?" "Corbin, my CFO. He said we needed to finalize the contract before the launch." "Where is he now?" Callista's face went pale. "He was in the conference room when the power went out." Carter turned to Henry. "I need to see that room." They moved as a unit, SWAT forming a protective perimeter around Callista and Matilda. Carter walked beside Henry, their old familiarity returning like muscle memory. "I'm sorry about Sarah," Henry said quietly. Carter's jaw tightened. "Understood." Maybe. The conference room was empty, except for one man. Finn Mercer sat at the table, his hands shaking, his face ashen. "Where's Corbin?" Callista demanded. "He left, right after the power went out. He said he was going to check the backup generators." Carter walked the perimeter of the room, examining everything. He found Ingrid's tablet still on the table, unlocked. He scrolled through her calendar. Every meeting, every schedule, every security rotation. All of it accessible. Ingrid was feeding him information, Carter said. "That's ridiculous," Callista snapped. "Ingrid has been with me for 3 years. And how much money would it take to buy 3 years of loyalty?" Callista had no answer. Carter found something else. A document on the table, 43 pages, unsigned. He flipped to page 27 and found the clause. He handed it to Callista without a word. She read it, and her hands began to shake. "This would give away my company. That's why they needed you isolated and afraid. Fear makes people sign things." Henry's radio crackled. "Commander, we have movement in the executive garage. Black sedan, male driver, attempting to exit." Carter's eyes snapped up. "That's him. Block the exit. Already on it." Units are in pursuit. They ran. Carter, Henry, 2 SWAT members, and Callista, who refused to be left behind despite Henry's protests. Matilda was given to a female officer who promised her hot chocolate and cartoons. The executive garage was 6 floors down. They took the service elevator, moving fast. When the doors opened, they saw Corbin Shaw's Mercedes idling at the security gate, blocked by a SWAT vehicle. Corbin stepped out of the car, hands raised, his face the picture of innocence. "Thank God you're here. I was trying to escape the attackers." Carter walked forward slowly. "Where's Ingrid?" "I don't know. She ran when the shooting started." There was no shooting. Not until SWAT arrived. Corbin's smile did not waver. "I must have been confused." Carter circled him like a predator. The jammer was placed in mechanical room 3. "You know the one. It's where the primary fiber optic hub connects. Only someone with building access and technical knowledge would know that." I'm the CFO. I don't deal with mechanical systems. No, but you do deal with contractors, like the one you hired to change the fire exit locks this afternoon. Corbin's smile finally cracked. That's absurd. Carter pulled out his phone, the old one, and showed Henry a photo. I took this at 6 o'clock tonight. Fire exit 7, 27th floor. Brand new lock core. No work order on file. Henry examined the photo. We can trace the serial number, see who purchased it. You won't need to, Carter said. He looked at Corbin. You're going to tell us where Ingrid is right now, or I'm going to let the police search your car. And I'm betting we'll find some very interesting documents in there. Corbin's face finally showed fear. I want my lawyer. You'll get one. After you tell me where Ingrid is and whether there are any other people in this building at risk. Corbin's hands started to shake. He was a corporate criminal, not a soldier. The game was over, and he knew it. She's in the parking garage, level 3. We were supposed to meet there. Henry dispatched a team. They found Ingrid Doyle sitting in a Honda Civic, surrounded by packed suitcases and $200,000 in cash. The arrests were clean, professional, and devastating. Corbin Shaw and Ingrid Doyle were taken into custody. Zane Turner and his crew were rounded up. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital transfers, encrypted communications, the restructuring document, witness statements. Callista Warren stood in the lobby of her building, watching police lights paint the street in blue and red. Matilda was asleep in her arms, finally calm after a trauma counselor had spent 20 minutes with her. The building was secure. The threat was neutralized. But Callista felt like she had been hollowed out. Henry Brooks approached Carter, who was leaning against a concrete pillar, looking exhausted. The captain thing, Henry said. Does she know? You going to tell her? What's there to tell? That was another life. You saved a lot of people in that other life. Carter looked at him. I lost more than I saved. Henry was quiet for a moment. Sarah would be proud of you. Carter's face went hard. Don't. She would. You protected that little girl like she was your own. Audrey is my own. She's all I have left. You have us, the unit. We never forgot you. Carter shook his head. I'm done with that, Henry. I just want to raise my daughter in peace. You did tactical entry on 2 armed hostiles and coordinated a SWAT extraction. That's not exactly peace. It was survival. There's a difference. Callista walked over, Matilda still asleep on her shoulder. She looked at Carter for a long moment, really looked at him for the first time. Thank you, she said. You're welcome. I need to know who you are. Carter glanced at Henry, who nodded and walked away, giving them privacy. I'm a father who works nights so I can pick my daughter up from school in the afternoons. You were military. Was. What unit? The kind that doesn't exist on paper. Hostage rescue? Among other things. Callista's voice dropped. Why did you leave? Carter was quiet for a long time. Because the people I was supposed to protect died anyway, and my wife was one of them. Callista's breath caught. I'm sorry. Me too. Your daughter. Audrey. How old was she when you lost your wife? 4. Callista looked down at Matilda. I know. Navy pilot. Training accident. How did you know that? I read the company newsletter. You gave a scholarship in his name. They stood in silence, 2 people bound by loss and survival. I owe you everything, Callista said finally. You owe me nothing. I did what anyone should do. No, not anyone. Most people would have run. You stepped forward. Carter looked at her. I have a daughter. She needs to grow up knowing that when people are in danger, you help them. That's the only lesson that matters. Callista felt tears on her face for the first time in years. I was terrible to you. I dismissed you. I thought you were nobody. I am nobody. That's the point. You're a hero. I'm a father. The rest doesn't matter. A police officer approached with paperwork. Statements needed to be taken. Evidence needed to be logged. The machinery of justice was grinding into motion. Carter started to walk away. "Wait," Callista said. "I want to offer you a position. Head of security, whatever salary you want, full benefits, college fund for Audrey." Carter smiled, and it was genuine. "I appreciate the offer, Mrs. Warren, but I like fixing air conditioners and checking locks. It's predictable, safe. After tonight, you want safe? Especially after tonight." He turned to go again, and Callista called out one more time. "Carter?" He stopped. "If you ever need anything at all, you call me." He nodded. "Take care of your daughter, Mrs. Warren. She's braver than you think." Then he walked out into the night, toward a modest apartment where his own daughter was waiting for him to come home. 3 weeks later, Warren Tech launched its security platform without incident. Corbin Shaw and Ingrid Doyle were indicted on 17 counts including attempted fraud, conspiracy, and criminal endangerment. Zane Turner and his crew took plea deals. The company survived, stronger and more vigilant. Callista Warren was interviewed by national media. She told them about the night, about the danger, about the SWAT team. She mentioned a security guard who had helped them but declined to give his name. Some heroes, she said, preferred to stay invisible. Carter Hale continued working night shifts. He still arrived 10 minutes early. He still logged every irregularity in his worn notebook. But now, when he walked through the building, people nodded at him with something new in their eyes. Respect. And on his desk, next to his thermos of coffee, was a framed photo. Audrey, age 7, laughing at the park. Underneath, in his handwriting, "The only mission that matters." One quiet night, 3 months after the incident, Callista brought Matilda to the office late for a forgotten toy. She saw Carter at his desk, reading a book while monitoring the security feeds. She walked over. He looked up, surprised. "Mrs. Warren, is everything all right? Call me Callista." "And yes, I just wanted to say thank you." "Again, you already did." "I know, but Matilda wanted to give you something." The little girl stepped forward shyly and handed Carter a drawing. It showed 2 children holding hands, with the words, "Thank you for the quiet game," written in crayon at the top. Carter's eyes softened. "This is beautiful, Matilda." "Audrey can come to my birthday party if she wants," Matilda said. "Mommy said so." Carter looked at Callista, who nodded. "She's been asking about Audrey. I think they could be friends." "I'd like that," Carter said quietly. Callista reached out and shook his hand. "You taught me something important that night. About assumptions, about courage, about what really matters." "What's that?" "That the most important people are often the ones we don't see." Carter smiled. "Your daughter is lucky to have you. She's lucky you were there." They stood there for a moment. 2 survivors, 2 parents, 2 people who understood that life was fragile and precious and worth protecting. Then Callista and Matilda went home, and Carter returned to his rounds, checking locks and watching cameras and keeping people safe. Because that's what fathers do. That's what heroes do, even the invisible ones.